I'm sitting in the office, and Lee's like, "Oh my, can you believe this? Can you believe what have they done? What have they done?"
Well, they posted about
the
it like
going downhill. That's it. This is the sign. This is the beginning of the end. And I'm like, "What's going on, Lee? What's going on?" And he's like, "Dude, they're going van style for the ambulance." I'm like, "Okay." Like
they bought the E350.
Yeah, I know it's not the best looking thing in the world, but I don't think it's a sign of bad things to come. But Lee's like,
no,
it's got to ride on a proper chassis.
F550 or nothing, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Lee Schaefer.
I'm Joe Coy.
And this is the Supply Line.
It is.
Where'd you come from, Joe?
I came from Rosenbauer.
Right, a little bit of a fire background.
And I was a firefighter for the past 7 years, and before that, an explorer. And
got it.
Yeah. How about you?
So I came from Pierce Manufacturing, one of the major OEMs also.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of a volunteer firefighter experience, and before that also explorers.
And we're about the same age.
Yeah. So this is diametrically opposed on how we view the fire.
Which is hilarious. Yeah, we're about the same age, kind of similar backgrounds, yet you and I look at the fire service in two completely different lenses. You are...
Think electric fire trucks and a nice horse.
Wow.
Carriage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if we had a perfect fire truck, it would literally be a Clydesdale pulling, a wagon down the street. And
I mean, that's the newest and oldest I could have gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme about that. So, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to back myself in that corner this early on. But, I like the progressive new type of fire trucks.
All right.
Absolutely. As the audience listens to our podcast, I hope what they get out of it is they find something one of us is saying that they agree with,
right?
As we're talking to these major companies and breaking down new technology.
I mean, it's really about those questions that come up on those Facebook posts that never get answered.
Yep.
And they come from usually two different sides, right? And neither one of them gets answered. So it's good to get these questions out directly to the people that matter.
Yep.
The designers, the owners,
engineers, the owners. Yeah.
And this is going to be really exciting. Looking forward to it.
Yep.
So Joe, before we get on with it, I want to talk about what we're wearing.
We gotta do a fit check. You gotta do a fit check.
What the hell are you wearing, Joe?
So this is Linville Fire Department.
Right.
They are up. They cover Grandfather Mountain. For anybody who is familiar with North Carolina or the Appalachian Mountains, they cover Grandfather Mountain.
Got it.
Really, really cool area. They're up by Boone, North Carolina.
You were swinging by or what?
I was driving through. We were visiting Grandfather Mountain State Park, and we were driving by, and they were selling T-shirts, and stopped in and said hello. And before we started chatting, I sat there for about an hour with the guys, chatting about. They have some really cool fire trucks, all 4x4 set up. They're way up in the mountains. They're
hell yeah,
super cool. So representing those guys today, which is exciting. Lee,
is it awful?
What in God's seriously? What is going on right now?
So this is my Hawaiian shirt. There was a shady company online. I mean, I don't want to say shady. I don't know if they're shady or not, but it looked like a scam almost, right? So they have all these pictures.
I think you got scammed, Lee. I don't know how to tell you this. I think
some of the photographers I actually know from these trucks. But anyway,
really?
So this is my Orange County Fire Rescue from Florida Hawaiian shirt.
So it's a shirt covered in all Orange County fire trucks. Are they all E1s?
I think they are. There was one exception to that, I thought, but I do not think this is so.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all E1 trucks.
Yeah.
So we got our E1 Typhoons. We got Truck 54 here next to SeaWorld. Sabranto. And Engine 41 does the Killarney area. So just special to me because that's where I grew up. I know all these areas, and I know, I had friends growing up in all these areas. So it's a cool shirt, and I love it. And then my hat is Rescue.
Super cool.
My Rescue 4 hat.
Rescue 4 hat.
Yeah. It's not turned around right now, but if we show the cameras here, Rescue 4 in New York City. So you got your blue background with the number 4. So that's
awesome. Lee, I've never met anybody like you until I came here, and you have this weird ability to look at any fire truck in the entire U.S. and give me the department name, the truck that came before it, the truck that came before that truck, what they've changed in the colors on the fire truck and their graphics packages. You have this just ability that I've never seen in this industry before. It's super cool.
It's a gift and a curse.
It's something. It's pretty neat. But how did it all start? Like, have you always been in fire trucks? Was it always like since you were a little kid, it was just fire trucks your thing? Or
so
what?
It's funny. I used to be in the construction trucks, right? I used to want to be a construction worker. I like those Caterpillar, diesel tractors on the side of the road and everything. And I grew up in Orlando. And one day when I was 5 or 6, my house caught fire, and and Orange County Fire Rescue showed up along with Orlando Fire Department. And what was cool about that night was that I remember the truck really specifically, right? It was an old E1, a 90s E1 rear mount, and it was truck 51 from Orange County, Florida. And they came up to me, and they're like, hey, Lee, well, they didn't know my name, but they're like, hey, you want to sit up in the truck? And so they let me sit up in the lieutenant seat. And from then on, the lights, the sounds, I mean, it was cool as hell. And from then on, I really, really wanted to be a firefighter when I grew up. And
what happened?
Well, I'm not a fireman,
no.
Obviously. I'm an engineer now. And when I was 15, I decided to become an explorer, right? So similar to you, became an explorer with Orlando Fire Department. And I was 15, and I think that some of the stuff I saw was probably I was probably a little young, and some of the medical calls, I decided at that point that I didn't like medical calls that much. Didn't want to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
So I took the engineering route and decided to pursue fire trucks.
And when you took the engineering route, right, so you're like, all right, firefighting is not for me full time. So you said, basically yourself, you said, I'm going to become an engineer because you want to work on fire. Your whole goal is to get back to the fire service.
I don't like engineering at all, to be honest with you. I like the fire trucks, right? I wanted that end product.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit different. Most people, when they go to engineering school, usually they like the math, they like the science behind it. But I really needed a way to get to fire trucks without being a fireman, and that was the only way I could figure out how to do it, so I did it.
Now, growing up, I've heard some rumors and some stories. I mean, you're very into fire trucks. In fact, we'll get to what's behind us right now in the studio. For those listening online, there's a fire truck behind us. But I've heard a nickname, Fire Truck Lee.
Yeah.
Or was it Fire Truck Boy? One of the two.
Fire Truck Boy. So
what's the story here? Because this was kind of a foundational moment for your life when this whole thing kind of happened.
So when I was in about 5th grade, there was different people in our grade, right? So you had your cheerleaders, you had your football players, skateboarders types, and I was fire truck boy. And basically, I used to ride my bike around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I was driving a fire truck, so that included me making the fire truck sounds, the Q2B noise. I was an expert at it at the time. And
verbally through mouth, you're like, woo,
yeah,
rolling around.
I was good at it too.
Oh, I bet you were.
And I drove past his house, and the whole cheerleading team, or what became the cheerleading team, was standing outside, and it was embarrassing as hell because I didn't realize it until I was like past them, and they were all just staring at me. And from then on, there was Robbie Ann was one of them. I remember she gave me the nickname Fire Truck Boy. And
so like around school, people would be like Fire Truck Boy.
Yeah. And then in 9th grade, that actually changed. There was this girl, Janae, and she changed it to Fireman Lee. And I was really proud. That was a proud moment. I still liked fire trucks. I was still the same guy.
Yeah.
And but she had that new nickname for me. It was a progression of the Fire Truck Boy name. So yeah, that's what I was always known as.
That's really cool. Nothing's changed because now
I own a dang fire truck.
Rather than using your mouth to make those noises, you've got an actual cue mounted to an actual fire truck. So what's behind us in our studio? So for those listening online who aren't able to see us right now, we're sitting in front of a fire truck.
Yep.
So Lee, tell us about the fire truck.
Yeah, so it's a 1987 Pierce, right? And I actually came, I worked at one time at Pierce Manufacturing, and this actually came from Taylor's Tints. So it was a gift to me, and it's my own fire truck. I take it on dates now with Katie and my girlfriend. We take it through McDonald's. It's really
like you're almost a daily driver, I would call it.
Yeah, and
it's borderline daily driver.
Yeah, we named it Clifford.
Yeah,
so it's Clifford the fire truck.
It's super cool. It's like an odds and ends bin of like pieces donated to it from around the industry. You just added last week the box alarm grills. They gave you a mud flap for it.
Full width mud flap in the back, which is super neat. And we have. We just have, the signs around there. Taylor's made a few signs for it. We had lights donated from FireTech.
Yep.
And, just a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And
hose in the back from a department up in
Kentucky?
West Virginia or Kentucky. I mean, it just continues to be the kind of like community thing that's happening. It's really been really neat to follow. And I think it's just the genuine, like, childlike bewilderment you have of fire trucks. People just really like it. Like they want to be a part of that journey. Right. It's really, really fun. So,
and it's been cool for me because I get to work on it and everything. I get to learn, for my day job and just from a personal interest standpoint.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool.
So 1987 fire truck, is that like the ideal vintage of fire truck in your mind? Like, is that like the years that they were really
it wasn't just Pierce, right? So it was the engine in it is an old Detroit diesel.
Yeah.
You have that, that kind of signature sound.
None of that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so you got smoke blowing out the side. You got that loud sound. It doesn't have a Jake brake. I wish it did, but that's okay. And it's just, it's one of those, when you think of a fire truck in America, you think of something like this. The sound, the lights,
What do you think then about the dawn of the electric fire truck era and the dawn of things like electronic pump panels, like fully electronic, digital display?
It's funny, right? When I drive this thing around, right? When I fix it up, right? When I wire new lights to it, I'm actually wiring into switches that are existent, right? They're high enough amperage where you can just run LED lighting off of them, so there's no relays in the way or anything like that. And the truck has been around since 1987, which to me is important, right? Because fire trucks today, whether they're diesel or electric, I just don't think that kids in 30 years are going to be going back and buying a 2023 fire truck and fixing it up. I don't think it'll be possible with the electronics and sort of the progression of all that stuff. It's just not going to be there anymore to fix.
Yeah. And you can't go get like a $10. I agree with you there. You can't go get a $10 new speedometer from the marine store down the street, right? Like, it's a screen now,
Right, and that's I guess that's part of the nostalgia, right, of the fire service. When I think of the fire service and being a traditional type guy, I think of fire trucks like this. I think of trucks that never broke. I think of guys that never broke, and just a tough, dirty job with trucks that couldn't break. There was nothing to break on them, and so it sort of encapsulates everything that I think about the fire service right behind me.
Isn't that truck?
Yeah. So
and Lee, guess what?
What?
That entire truck encapsulates everything I want to move away from as a fire service.
Jesus. So Joe, so let's start at your childhood. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I heard earlier that you were an explorer as well.
I was. Yeah. I started the same way. I think I was like 15 or something like that. Yeah. About 15 years old. Joined White Bear Lake, Minnesota, their Explorer post, and did that for a couple years.
How old were you then?
I think I was about 15.
15.
So, I did that for 3 years or so until I graduated high school.
All right. What did you learn there?
What did I learn?
Yeah.
So, my uncle's a firefighter growing up
out
in Montana and then later on in life in Wyoming. And it was always I just had this draw to it. I just loved it, And so the Explorer post was an opportunity to kind of test the waters there. And it was on a very interesting Explorer post, one of those, it's a department in kind of a big flux of leadership and change. And so the Explorers got to do, again, probably way more than they should have been doing.
Yeah.
Getting to do stuff on medical calls. I wasn't an EMT. I wasn't even CPR trained technically.
Right.
We're doing stuff that we shouldn't have been doing, but it was a really cool experience and got me so hands-on.
And you liked
hooked.
It.
Yeah,
right?
I was hooked.
So the result of that was Joe wanted to become a fireman.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I really thought I want to go full-time fire, And so looking at my options coming out of high school, I was like, well, what do I do? And, my family was you should go to college. And so I decided to go to college, went to college for business. But during college, I found a college that actually had a fire department at it. St. John's University in Minnesota has their own fire department at the college, and it's staffed by 16 students.
Right.
So 16 kids from 17 to 21, 22 years old, and then
talk me through this. You're college students, right? You're walking around the college campus with radios.
Yeah. So we carry our pagers with us. Yeah. And we were.
And you run out of class. And
you run out of class and just leave that test. I remember. You go into. You go into your classes for the semester and you say, hey, talk to the professor after the first class and say, hey, listen, I'm going to carry this pager on me. If this thing goes off, I'm going to have to leave.
Yeah.
And most of them are like, that's awesome. It's amazing. Thanks for doing that. And
it was a known thing on the college campus, right? It wasn't a surprise.
It was pretty. It was fairly well known.
Yeah.
I had one professor that was like, dude. I had a couple professors that said, don't do that. No. And I was like, well, I don't have to tell you, I am leaving. So, but I had one professor in particular who was like, don't. You're not leaving my class.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you because I am. Like, this thing goes off. If somebody's having a heart attack, I will be leaving this classroom. Like, you're not stopping that. And this guy's like, whatever. We're button heads. And it was like a couple weeks into the semester, it was the spring semester, and we're going through a freeze-thaw cycle.
Right.
And long story short, water pipe burst in his office building, on campus. Sent water 5 floors down.
Yeah.
Just an absolute mess, right? Just totally gutted this building. It was pretty crazy. And one of the first offices I went into to try to save like computers and pull us off of the ground was his office.
Yeah.
So I'm in there, and it's just water everywhere, pouring through the ceiling, and I'm pulling his computer stuff. And I look over and I realize, I'm like, oh my god, it's his office. 'Cause I see a picture of him and his family on his desk, and I'm like, jeez, of course, this is the guy. No, this is the guy. This is the guy. And so, the next morning I walk into class, and sorry, I missed that class. I was up all night. I was like, I'm not going by 7 a.m. with this guy. So I sent him an email. Said, hey, just so you know, I'm not gonna make the class this morning. I was actually in your office last night trying to protect your stuff. And he sent back, he's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'll never question what you're doing again. I really appreciate that. Blah, blah, blah.
That is super cool.
So anyways, but yeah, super cool experience. So it was a unique department. We were, it's actually a private fire department owned by the monastery of St. John's.
Okay.
So, we have a full-time fire chief. We have a full-time assistant chief who's a monk.
Yeah.
There's a couple priests on there, a few monks on there. And then there's 16 student firefighters. They never used to have students on the department until about the year 2000. It was all monks.
Yeah.
The monastic the monastic community is aging.
Yeah.
And so they need to start bringing students in.
Yep.
And today it's majority students.
It's interesting. So when you think about the American Fire Service, you think a lot of volunteers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think of the Northeast, and you got those heavy hitters, very fast guys.
Yeah.
They're always going to the firehouse with those blue lights. And I don't know if you ever think about this, like having a priests and monks being the fire chiefs on this this department at a college. And I think that's what's unique about the American Fire Service. One of the things.
Yeah.
That is just super unique.
In our fire hall, there was the old bunk room. Yeah. And that's where the monks used to stay before they had radios and stuff like that. This is back, in the 60s and stuff. They would stay up there in the firehouse. They would commit like 4 guys a night to stay in the firehouse and run calls. And when they would leave the firehouse, they had a map of the district that they cover, and they would put a pin on the map where they're going. So the guys coming in to relieve them, the bell would ring, right? Yeah. The guys coming to relieve them to come take the next truck out would see the map, say, that's where we're going.
They know where to go. That is super cool.
Super cool. So a lot of cool history there. Really great department. Did that for 4 years.
Yeah.
It was my campus job, so it's pretty neat. And then got out of college and became a firefighter in the cities, in Twin Cities in Minnesota.
All right.
At a department called Lake Johanna Fire Department. They cover about 45,000 people, run about 4,000, 5,000 calls a year.
Yeah.
A unique department, all part-timers. Yeah. So I was a part-timer.
Okay.
Everybody's a part-timer. I think you had to work a minimum of 12 hours a week.
Yep.
So I was doing about 30, I think, typically.
Okay.
Spent a few overnights there a week, and that type of stuff.
And what were you there? You got up to captain, I think, right?
No, I was a captain at St. John's.
Okay.
I was just a firefighter EMT.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Lake Johanna. But yeah, did that for a few years. And then meanwhile, after graduating college, I also got a job at Rosenbauer.
Yeah.
Kind of mixing the passion for firefighting.
Right.
And my schooling of business.
And at Lake Johanna, they used Rosenbauer, right?
They did, yeah. It was really cool. Yeah, it was so neat to like ride on the trucks that we're building every day. Really made me like, I do bleed pretty heavily for Rosenbauer because it's something that I put my life into.
Yeah.
Both on the job and then on the other job.
Right.
And so I have a very special connection to those trucks.
It's funny, right? When we were talking at the beginning about what this podcast is about, and I know, in recent times, Rosenbauer has offered a lot of products that are unique to the American Fire Service, right?
Yeah.
You have your Avenger chassis.
Yep.
Which was a little bit of a unique design.
Very
still
unique.
diesel.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the electric fire truck that most recently LA purchased and everything. And
now Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah. And I noticed in a lot of those comments,
right,
when you think about those comment sections, a lot of that feedback, both negative and positive, it kind of goes unanswered, and people still wonder about those things. It does. And this really speaks to, what this podcast is about, right? Yeah. When Rosenbauer is one of those names you like love it or hate it, but I feel like a lot of people don't know that much about it. And I think it's interesting that your travels and your career led to that. Yeah. To Rosenbauer up there.
Yeah. And it fed, I mean, like I said earlier, I am a progressive firefighter, and my time at Rosenbauer, I eventually got to the position where I was essentially product manager for a couple of our key technology products. Right. So I oversaw our electric battery extinguishing system. Yep. So that was our the Rosenbauer BEST system. Right. Very advanced technology for new issues, and controversial tool.
Yeah.
So
the things you worked on there were not necessarily fire trucks for the whole time that you were there.
Not the whole time I was there. Also had to started as the fire trucks, and then I got into the technology space.
Okay.
And so it really fed me because I really enjoyed that cutting edge of the fire service. And now I look at what people are doing with like things like Sam Boost and things of that nature, right? I'm like, wow, that is cutting edge.
And I think that's one of the Sam Boost is one of the guests that we have.
That is one of the guests we have this season. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So
that is exciting.
I know. So okay, I got to know about this though. You have just an affinity with Kentland Fire Department.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it even at the beginning of the show.
PG County is its own thing.
Yeah.
I had a chance to live in PG County.
Right.
Well, I didn't live in PG. I lived in Anne Arundel County, which is right next to PG County, for 6 months, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, for work. Actually selling fire trucks there. It's its own breed, man. Right. It's a totally different fire service than I know.
Yeah.
They like to go on the roofs. They like they put an aerial up on every single scene, no matter what. I mean, it's so different than the fire service that I'm accustomed to, and I really kind of jive with.
Yeah.
You love that,
right?
It's just different.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's my style of firefighting.
I'll tell you how that started.
Yes.
Right. So when I was little, there was Code 3 models back then, right? So Code 3. Now I think they have some called fire replicas.
Yep.
But Code 3 used to make these models of fire trucks, and I remember very clearly they put out a Tower Ladder 33. It was back early 2000s, 2002 I think. And but I remember looking at that model, and I was thinking to myself, that's a cool truck, right? It's white, all white, so it's not your normal red, with the black stripe and the orange, and it had this affinity about it, almost like almost like a race car kind of thing. It was different, right?
Yeah.
It was unique, and in my career as I progressed up through there, I became friends with some of the fire departments online. I run that little photography thing for fire trucks. And then progressing into Pierce, I actually was a part of their most recent truck.
Yeah.
Which is Engine 33. It's got that center front intake thing you mentioned earlier. And I met the guys, and I got to do a ride along with them, and I really got to know how these guys operate, and I saw some videos afterwards and things that supported that, and they're aggressive. It was scary, right? They go in.
Some might argue too aggressive.
They go in all the way, right? When I think about fire departments, like what fire department would I want, saving, let's say I had kids, right? And, my house is on fire, and I want someone there to save my kids. They put their lives on the line the way they operate. I mean, they operate tough, right?
Yeah.
But when they get to a call, that fire is going out.
Yeah.
Fast as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And to me it's just cool. They're a little rough on their equipment, right? They keep it shiny, right? They keep it they shine it every week, and there was just something about that shining and taking pride in the machine that you use so hard.
Mid-Atlantic, pride in the equipment and doing the job.
Yeah, you use a truck so hard,
the old school way,
and then you go back and polish it. And it's like, it's got dents in it, but the thing is polished.
Yeah.
And it was just something about that, and being a part of their build, understanding why they do things certain ways. I just thought it was cool as hell.
Yeah. I like the I don't know. I think I'm just built a little different than that.
And part of that comes from your experience in the fire service, right? Starting at Explorers, going through.
I'll tell you, my favorite thing in the world is to see like small volunteer departments really stepping it up and taking their operations to the next level, right? Both in the professionalism and the service to their community. I think back to Appalachia Fire Department up in Virginia here. Yeah. They're up in coal country, small little town. I was up there doing a demo one day with them, tiny little department. Yeah. The amount of pride that they carried, and but more than the pride, the professionalism. Every single one of those folks out there were dressed properly. Yeah. They're properly dressed for the job. They looked like they walked to my grandma's house. I'd say, "Yep, you guys are the right guys to do what I need you to do to help my grandma." Right. Yeah. Wearing the attire, right? Wearing Class B uniform, even as volunteers. When they go to the firehouse, I wear a Class B uniform. When I go to calls, I'm not wearing my ragged T-shirt. I'm wearing proper gear, and they go, and I love that. Right. And it is a different thing, I mean, you're not going to see them at the bar on the weekend wearing their shirt, right? It's for work, and they look at it as a professional job, which I like that a lot. And that's the type of fire service I just adore. Yeah.
And thinking again,
it's just it's just fun to look at it.
Thinking about the American Fire Service, right? You know, I've been in the Northeast a lot. Yeah. I've seen those departments. But as you go into the, out west, right? You're from the Midwest. And as you go out there, there's like these different feels to the different departments.
Different feels.
And you walk in and it's totally different vibe.
Totally, yeah.
You walk into a New York City firehouse, like Rescue 4, let's say, I have a connection there through family and stuff. And, walking into that firehouse, they got a couch sitting out there. They got the cigars going in the back. And they're just waiting for that call. And when the call goes out, they bust their ass to help the people. But, the truck's dirty. Things are, it's shined, but it's dirty. You can tell that it's been used.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so cool, but it's not the same feeling. You go out west, there's a lot of wildfire.
Yep.
And that's not something you saw in Florida, where I grew up.
Yep.
So you just have these different pockets of different firemen, and I think that's what one of the coolest things about the fire service is.
Yeah, and I come from an area of the country where volunteer is still the way.
Yeah.
Minnesota's, don't quote me on this, I think they're like 48 of the 50 states for the least funded.
Yeah.
States in America for fire service.
Right.
I come down here to North Carolina. It's been totally shocking for me as I moved down here for this job to Asheville, North Carolina, where we're based out of for our day jobs.
Yeah.
Every one of these departments is full time.
Yeah.
Every one of these departments. I'm talking departments, all of them.
Right.
It blows my mind. I sit there and go, what kind of population do you guys serve? Well, we serve about 5,000 people. You guys are blessed to have a full-time department. That's amazing, And I look in Minnesota, and the department next to mine, they cover 3 cities. They cover 110,000 people.
Yeah.
As a volunteer organization.
Right.
They run thousands and thousands.
And they do it with
thousands
volunteers.
Of calls a year. Yeah. It's a very different fire service. I think my upbringing in that fire service as a volunteer and having to be to run that many calls, you have to be operating as a professional kind of pseudo military organization where.
Right.
It's more than just
a voluntary commitment, a passing commitment.
It's very much a professional.
It's a full life commitment without pay, and that's that's part of America.
Yeah.
We're like 70% volunteer, I think.
Yeah.
Throughout the country.
Yeah.
And I guess don't quote me on that, but it used to be 70% a few years back. So, I think that's cool. So tell me a little bit about like when you think of a firehouse that you're a chief, right?
Yep.
What does your firehouse look like? Talk to me about the uniforms, the trucks. Tell me about the people.
Yeah.
You volunteer? Right? You think?
I think you could look at it 2 different ways. But we'll say this. We'll give examples of volunteer house. That's kind of my background. Is more on the volunteer side of things. Really pride in our equipment.
Yeah.
And make sure we have the right equipment for the job of today.
Yeah.
That's something that I think you and I are going to look at a lot in this season of stuff is the equipment needs to match our fires we see today. So all the technology I can get.
Right.
I want SAM boost. I want all that tech.
Yeah.
Because I want to enable my firefighters to have every tool at their disposal to do their job safely and effectively and efficiently.
Okay.
So very tech forward. When it comes to our uniforms, everybody's in uniforms all the time. We run a professional ship, right?
Yeah.
This place is clean, spotless. The community comes in. It is like perfect in there.
Yeah.
And we focus heavily on training.
Yeah.
And that's that department. To me, that's the department. How about you, Lee? What is you build a department? What does it look like?
I think about some of the fire departments I've stood in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long Island, New York, they got a lot of volunteer companies. I stood in Kentland's firehouse, and when I think about those, I think guys walking around in shorts and t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Ready for that next job.
Yeah.
They don't look perfect.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when they go to the call, they're expecting to have that fire suit on, and that turnout gear on, and so that's one of the things I think about, right? I think about quick. I remember Will up at Kentland. He has got these orange Crocs, and Kentland's color is orange and black, and he wears these orange Crocs. He wears the hell out of them, and I just think about fast off shoes, getting into those boots and everything. When I think about the firehouse itself, gyms. Like when thinking about Kentland again, you have this gym that was put together in part by this community gym company that brought in some equipment and everything. But when you walk in there, they all painted the walls. They got some graffiti out there on the walls that they did themselves. And you think about the trucks, right? Going up to the trucks, polished but used. Is what I think about with a perfect firehouse.
The firehouse itself.
brick,
old.
I love the
historic
brick
firehouse.
Yeah,
That's
I
what you
love
like.
walking down the hallway. I love a patch
Yeah.
collection, a good patch collection on the wall, good old fashioned bells that may or may not be hooked up. You have old relics, right, from fires that you might have a certain memory from a fire or something, like a rubber duck, let's say, and you have that up there on the wall with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
And I think to me that's cool, and it's something that as you bring in new members, young membership, they can look at that wall and say, you know what, that's where this firehouse has been, and I know what the expectations are, and I know what this is about when I'm getting into it, and it's part of that nostalgia. Brick firehouses, not those big office buildings they're making today that they're all bright and clean feeling and tile all over. I don't know. That drives me nuts.
I like that. Yeah.
And I don't even think you can call them firehouses anymore. By the way, I'll stand on that hill.
Wow. Okay.
I think they got to be called like fire offices, or fire stations.
Yeah.
But they're not the house that you think about with that old school firehouse, and that's just something I love, and I'd love to be a part of that. So starts the podcast.
Yeah.
So starts the comment section from Lee and Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what, the part I'm looking forward to the most about this is that half of the audience, I'm hoping, is on your side, and half is on my side, and we're like speaking to both of them.
Yep.
But we're answering the questions about
it's
both of them too.
It's actually speaking on their behalf.
Yeah.
Because we get to talk to founders and executives and engineering, head of engineers,
designers,
these major companies. Lee's bringing forth that energy,
that mindset,
and I hope I'm bringing forth the mindset of the other half, And we spend all day in our day job here just shouting each other over the wall.
Yeah.
Can you believe what XYZ company just released?
I
think that's great. Oh my gosh!
I got a story. I got to tell this.
Yeah. What's
up? One of those that comes right to mind is Orlando. So they just bought this new ambulance, and it's their first. It's their first non-diesel ambulance. Yeah, it's a gas ambulance. It's got the Ford van instead of a pickup truck.
I'm sitting in the office.
Super Duty chassis.
I'm sitting in the office, and Lee's like, "Oh my! Can you believe this? Can you believe what have they done? What have they done?
They posted about
it.
It's
going downhill. That's it. This is the sign. This is the beginning of the end." And I'm like, "What's going on, Lee? What's going on?" And he's like, "Dude, they're going van style for the ambulance." I'm like, "Okay." Like
they bought the E350.
Yeah, I know it's not the best looking thing in the world, but I don't think it's a sign of bad things to come. But Lee's like,
"No,
it's got to ride on a proper chassis.
F550 or nothing, man."
Yeah.
So, if you're gonna be on the ambulance, you gotta but that's one of those things that I think about when we think about these comments in the office and everything. That was one that just popped up. But no, I'm excited for the viewers. I'm excited for us too, because we're gonna learn with the viewers on this from these executives, from these engineers, from these designers
100%.
and owners, and I can't wait for it, honestly.
It's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah,
action packed.
Hell yeah! Here we go. Hey, that was fun.
We love a good debate. Find us on social media at the Supply Line Podcast on all platforms, and let us know whose side you are on in the comments.
And don't forget, leave us a 5-star rating. If you don't, well, that will hurt our feelings a little bit, but we'll pick up the broken pieces.